Back on Itza, Tzeentch is delivering that pizza with one of the hottest brick oven builds I've seen in a hot minute. Gabagool, Mr. Tony Soprano, taking on the Rebel King and the Dwarfs with an army of Flamers, and a strategy I've personally never seen in Domination before. A couple things you might not know since I haven't been covering Domination much recently. Dwarfs are legit a good faction in this game mode. A lot of competitive players have them at worst in mid-tier. Quite a few of them have them solidly in that A tier, particularly when it comes to choke point maps where they can defend 2 objectives. Naturally, they tend to not do quite as well when they have to stretch the field, but their win rate is well over 50%, and they have a reasonable amount of favorable matchups, including in tournaments. Gabagool has something really spicy planned for them, though. Exalted Lord of Change with Final Transmutation, and the Golden Griffin with Searing Doom and Gehenna's Golden Hounds. Those single entities have one major job here, that is to run interference and create space for the real killing power of the army to unleash their fiery ectoplasms. Metal Doggos gonna merely tickle the artillery crews and thunderers at the start of the match. Honestly, would not have expected the base version of Gehenna's to be that bad against squared up range troops, but anyway, terrain is the name of the game here, and this Tzeentch build begins and ends with the Flamers, who will try to utilize that to their fullest potential. Potentially a very risky play, the kind that can get you tabled super early if you're not careful, but of course has the potential to work better against Dwarfs than just about any other faction, because they don't have many troops that can gap close and shut them down in melee. 4 Flamers and an Exalted Flamer making their way over from the hilltop at point number 1, and they're gonna beeline straight for the woods near the Dawi spawn. There's a very good reason for that, and I'll explain that in a moment. That Exalted Flamer wants to make its presence felt, and it will do so with a bang. Pink Fires of Change immediately enveloping a Thunder Regiment and taking out some cannon crew as well. That was nasty, and with its 150 range, it will outskirmish lots of archers and gun troops, provided it has just a little bit of cover. Cover is the important point I want to bring your attention to here. The entire Flamer contingent has positioned themselves in and behind those woods, so they cannot get shot by gunpowder or crossbows. I do not know if it's intended, but Flamers seem to have very little trouble shooting through dense forest, to the point where very little, if any, of their volleys are blocked by trees. Whether that's entirely due to the grace period for shooters in the woods, or weird collision on their projectiles, or some combination, I don't know. All I know is Ghoul seems to be perfectly aware of that, and is utilizing that interaction to perfection here. The Dwarfs are being brutalized by these opening volleys, and will soon have a swarm of Furies descending on their back line, while the Lords of Change tear out the fronts. So what the Dwarfs need to do here, as their poor front ranks are being immolated, is immediately pull away from that tree line with everything, curl back towards objective number 3, and force those Flamers out into the open. If they stay here, it is death. Crazy start for Tzeentch, really smart play. For the most part, I like the Dwarf idea in terms of their deployment. Delay the range fight to give your army more time to fire, keep your army consolidated between point 2 and point 3. There was no real reason to push out a spawn immediately, and basically just sack objective number 3 up top. They're not going to be able to contest that anyway. I think this is the most common way Dwarfs like to play the maps, with contested points. But as soon as those volleys started opening up, they needed to pull away from the forest, because their units are just being absolutely shish kebab right now. And I wouldn't say they're responding particularly well to all this pressure, which is the art of war, right? Force your opponent into a sticky situation and just test how well they respond. Even great players can look mediocre if you catch them flat-footed, and that is certainly how this battle has begun. Multiple problems developing for the Dawi right now. Final Transmutation is hitting Thorak, who's sitting there on his Anvil of Doom looking a bit shell-shocked and wondering how the hell did all this happen. Furies are eating their arty crews, and the Slayers are elsewhere. The reinforcing units are literally spawning into a rain of Willy Pete and immediately being set ablaze. White Phosphorus is known for doing a bit of burninating, and Bolt of Change is dropping like a J-Dam from above. More Michael Bay explosions with Michael Bay. It's another disaster before a single objective has ever been capped, and the Dwarfs are going to have to do something real fast if they want to get back into this game. Which I'll say straight up is not their forte. They're really good at forcing bad engagements and rolling armies with minimal effort on occasion when they can snipe out important troops before they even get into combat and use that ranged firepower to force a hasty and disorganized attack. But when they are the ones being outshot and they're forced to move and break out of their solid formation, that is when they struggle, and this is 100% the definition of the struggle bus driving down Struggle Street. These Flamers have been disgustingly good this game, and that opening firing through the woods was crazy. I've not seen anything like it since this game came out. Just really smart play. So there's really only one reinforcing point the Dwarf should be using now. It should be the one closest to objective number 3. That is where he needs to put all his effort. Probably should start resummoning. A lot of these ranged troops are beyond the point of uselessness. They just can't kill anything, even if they were able to get in range of the Flamers. But Ghoul doesn't want to give them anything right now. The only Flamers he's utilizing are the ones that are still close to the woods. They're going to kill off this unit of Dwarf Warriors and then retreat. And he has another nasty idea that he'll put into practice a little bit later in this battle. Searing Doom coming down, putting yet more pressure on the remnants of those Thunderers, and he's spreading the field here, getting those Lords of Change into melee, now dealing with some miners with blasting charges. Master Rune of Slowness on the Flamers is a good idea in theory, but there's nothing nearby to help capitalize on that slow. Ideally, would want to have Thunderers or Slayers nearby to either shoot them or close them down in melee. But the Golden Griffin of Theurgy and the Exalted Lord of Change together pose a massive threat, not just to the Dawi infantry, because they don't have any elite troops on the field that could actually deal with them. Really, it's only Slayers, and they're flyers, so they should be able to escape from the clutches of any of those crazy Mohawked men. But they're also a huge threat to Thorak, and if they can find him isolated, like he is now, that could be a good opportunity to strike. But then again, Gabagool could just sit back and shoot Thorak to death. Slayers are charging out of the spawns now. I believe that's their best option when paired with the Master Rune of Slowness for dealing with these Flamers, but I mean, the Dwarfs are just hugely on the back foot right now and crawling their way back into this game, despite the value up in the top left not being all that different. Kind of surprised, actually. It's only a 1,400 lead for Tzeentch. It feels like much more. It feels like the Dwarfs have lost 3/4 of their army already. Master Rune of Doom activated, but not a lot of Dawi are in melee right now, so aren't really going to benefit from it too much. And, I mean, look, this game is over. It probably has been for the last couple minutes, so what we can do is talk about what the Dwarfs needed to do, how they could have changed their outlook here, and how they could have better responded to the pressure to establish map control and force those Flamers into a worse spot. Visually, there are still going to be quite a fireworks display going on for the remaining time we have together. Some great cinematics, and of course some smart tactics from Ghoul, who has displayed quite the mastery of Tzeentch in this one. I do believe he is a competitive player who uses Tzeentch as his main, or at least one of his mains, so good player to boot. One of the important assets in this army's toolbox are the Blazing Squealers and their Conduit of Infinity. He can retreat all his Flamers into the radius of that spell and replenish all their ammo, creating yet another vicious firing line overlooking objective number 2, which is now falling into Dawi hands, but most likely won't be able to be held for any significant amount of time, and God, that is so much fun to watch. Now, as we watch these wretched Dawi souls combust under what is amounting to a withering gout of warp flame, the positioning for the Dwarfs at the start was good, but they needed to get their whole army situated on objective number 3 as soon as those Flamers started firing through the woods. Positioning was good at the start, and then immediately crumbled once that pressure was applied. Position those Slayers in the rear, keep the army consolidated and together, slow down the Lords of Change every time they come in, and shoot them with Thunderers, using the Slayers to clear out the Furies who dive bomb the back, and then avoiding reinforcing from the middle and top points, and only using those safe spawns close to objective number 3. Could have mitigated a lot of the damage the Dwarfs took in those opening stages, because 3 or 4 full units got straight up deleted as they spawned in. It was like beaming down from the Star Trek Enterprise into an active volcano. Not a fun opportunity for anyone involved, except, I guess, Tzeentch, as they cackle and burninate everyone in front of them. And I think Thorak Ironbrow is about to die from that particular gout. Bolt of Change raining down too. Yep, he just got deleted as well. Crazy to watch. And I will say cannons are great for taking out Flamers. The problem for them is keeping them online, which is never easy against Furies, but I think disconnecting the crew and running them back through your own troops can potentially keep them alive, and if he was able to do so, then those Flamers would probably not have been around for very long. They're super squishy, they die to shooting, you just need to have something that can be in range to shoot them, and in this one, the Dwarfs just never establish any kind of foothold whatsoever, and Tzeentch has not let them back into this game in any way, shape, or form. Furies are munching up their Rangers with great weapons who have pretty bad base stats, and so they're going to get ripped apart. I'm not sure exactly how I feel about Furies doing so well against Rangers in melee. But then again, there were 2 Furies there, including a Portal Glyph summon, so that definitely played a part there. And 2 Furies probably should be able to kill Rangers, especially Great Weapon ones who are not very defensive in nature. But yeah, I mean, the Lords of Change themselves didn't do a whole lot here besides just run interference and stuff things up. Basically be a nuisance and a terror bomb, making sure anything that did get through would get routed before it actually got on top of the Flamers. But that was a hard carry by the Flamers, and well played from Ghoul. I also do want to say, please be respectful, whether the Dwarfs were a new player or just got shell-shocked here and put on the back foot, maybe just kind of quiet quitted. It's pretty discouraging to have people lambast you in the comment section of a video and say how bad you are. It's really not helpful. It doesn't encourage a very welcoming or hospitable atmosphere, and we want new players to come and try multiplayer. We want it to grow and thrive just like campaign does. So general rule of thumb here and in life is you don't need to be a dick. One thing people who don't play multiplayer may not understand is that it's very easy to get rolled and look like a quote-unquote bad player simply because you brought the wrong build or made a micro mistake and things snowballed out of control, but then immediately bounce back and play great in the next game. I have had plenty of replays that I've shown and not shown where I didn't play particularly great, made a big micro mistake and things snowballed out of control for me, and then I got face rolled and then came back and played really well, and that could be the case with the Dwarfs here. So do be respectful on that front. Hope you guys enjoyed it. Really fun to watch them get exploded, and I'll see you all in the next video.